everyone, it's Holly, and today I wanted to talk about Patreon. No, I'm not creating a Patreon. Don't worry. I have like no subscribers anyways, but I don't think I would do that. But Patreon, if you didn't know, is basically a website that kind of acts as 21st century patronage, hence the name. So instead of like in the ye olden days, when people like artists would have patrons who were just like wealthy people or nobility help supplement their income and their art, now creators can use Patreon and other similar services, but I think Patreon is the most well-known and the most recognized. Now creators can be connected with people from around the world who want to support them and have the ability to support them, but only in small dollar amounts. But together, their group of supporters can provide a big difference to these creators. A lot of times, and basically the basic idea behind this is that those people providing that sponsorship, the patronage, get something in return. So whether that's early access to content, exclusive content, something like that. And of course, Patreon does take a cut of the funds because they're a business. So I will say I personally patronize 3 people right now. I would like to at some point patronize more, but it's only so much money. Someday. So the first ones I ever did were actually Krista and Becca Ritchie, who are indie authors, and if you've watched any of my videos, it should come as no surprise that I love them. They offer podcasts and bonus scenes. They have a 2-tier system. A lot of Patreon is built on like this tier structure, so you get different rewards or additional rewards, exclusives in exchange for higher dollar amounts. So like theirs is you get a bonus scene for $1 a month, and for $5 a month you get any bonus scenes they write, as well as at least 1 monthly podcast, but a lot of times they do multiple podcasts. And the creators get to decide what tiers they set and what kind of rewards they set. For example, I follow Kate Kavanaugh. I am a patron of her Patreon. Hers is just $1 a month. That's all she does. You get everything. She basically just does like a Patreon live stream, and she does polls and stuff in her Patreon. And then actually the other one I follow, I think they only have 1 tier as well, and it's $5. It's actually a podcast Patreon. It's super niche. I think they have like 100 patrons. And that is Dom and Colin, and they do like Survivor and Big Brother, other reality TV podcasts, and they do rewatches in their Patreon feed. And I support them, and I actually chose to support them because I wanted to, but I was looking at other podcasters at the time, and especially because they had such a smaller amount of patrons, I decided it was more worthwhile for me to give my money to somebody who I felt like needed it a little bit more, but whatever. So I love that Patreon is an option for creators. I think it's great that they have this ability through the internet to reach a wide array of people who want to support them and who have the ability to support them. And especially for writers who their income can be inconsistent, especially indie authors. Like, not that published authors have it much better, they each have their pluses and minuses, but indie authors never have the option for an advance. At least with an advance, if you get it, you can kind of plan ahead. If you have the ability to like save some of that money and like portion it out month to month, but depending on your life situation, you may not be able to do that. But with indie authors, that's not an option at all. You have to basically just write and hope your books sell. And you have to do all your own publicity, although a lot of traditionally published authors have to do that too now. This is not my lane, so I will not edge into it too much. But you have all of that. And also it allows this community to grow. So I think like Krista and Becca Ritchie, like their community has really come together around the Patreon. And I think, you know, my podcast group, like we don't talk a lot, but I think there's something kind of nice about this like small little group of people who are of like 100 people who are listening to this one podcast, and that we all have this one thing in common. But I'm saying, like, you create that community and that group. I would love to see more authors, especially indie authors, use services like Patreon, partially because I would just like the additional bonus content, but also because I'd like to support them. I am financially able to support authors in more ways than some other people, and so, but I can only buy so many books. Like Serena Bowen, I will buy all of your books in every format, but like there's only so many. I can't just keep buying them. But with something like Patreon, I can supplement my support with a monthly fee. So, you know, I would just love for more to do it. Now, I understand there's a time investment involved here for the creators. They're going to need to provide something extra and additional in order to incentivize some people to come. Now, some of these authors may already have bonus content. Maybe your bonus content is deleted scenes. Okay, well, that's something you probably already have. Or it's sneak peeks at books. And depending on your fan base, they may or may not want more or less. So obviously I understand it's not as easy. It's just like creating a Patreon and like everybody's gonna show up and they're gonna love what you provide. But I love it as an idea. And I also love the idea of creators that I like and love and authors, them having a more consistent and stable income. That's the problem with creative jobs, basically, is the lack of consistency. I know Krista and Becca were able to publish 2 books earlier this year, the Bad Reputation duet, because of Patreon. It was something they had wanted to write. They started writing on Wattpad years ago, but had to stop because they had to focus on the books that were bringing in money. And because of Patreon, they were able to put their time into this passion project because they could justify the use of that time even if the books didn't sell well. And I really wanted those books, so I'm so happy to have been able to contribute to that, and I hope that their Patreon allows more Ariel Ethereal books too, you know. But I just think that more authors should use it or look into it, and maybe they have and they don't see the value, but I highly recommend it. And I will leave a link to some authors who use Patreon down below. Like, I know N.K. Jemisin uses it. I think she's one of the biggest authors on the platform. Anybody can use it. This is a really random video, but it was something I wanted to talk about, which I guess is really like any video.